Have you ever wondered what life was like in the very first cities? I'm not talking about Rome or Athens, but places thousands of years older. Today, we're journeying back in time, over 6,000 years, to the Fertile Crescent of Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, in what is now modern-day Iraq. This is where the story of urban living begins. Before cities, people lived as nomads, constantly moving to find food. But around 10,000 BC, something incredible happened. The agricultural revolution. People learned to domesticate plants and animals. Suddenly, they could stay in one place and produce their own food. Small villages began to pop up. For thousands of years, this was the norm. But in southern Mesopotamia, a group of people known as the Sumerians took it a step further. Around 4000 BC, they started building the world's first true cities. Places with names that sound like myths. Eridu, Uruk, and Ur. What made them different from large villages? It was their complexity. These weren't just collections of farmhouses. They were organized centers of power, religion, and trade. Let's zoom in on Uruk, often called the mother of all cities. By 3000 BC, Uruk was a bustling metropolis of possibly 50,000 people. Imagine that. At a time when most of the world lived in tiny hamlets, Uruk was a sprawling urban landscape, surrounded by a massive wall said to be built by the legendary King Gilgamesh himself. At the heart of Uruk, on every Sumerian city, was the ziggurat. This was a colossal, stepped pyramid with a temple at the top. It wasn't just a place of worship. It was the city's administrative and economic center. The priests who ran the temple were incredibly powerful. They collected taxes in the form of grain, wool, and other goods, storing them in vast temple storehouses. This surplus of food was the key. For the first time in history, not everyone had to be a farmer. This led to a boom in new professions. We see the emergence of artisans, potters, weavers, and metalworkers creating goods, not just for local use, but for trade. We see soldiers to protect the city's wealth, and bureaucrats to manage its complex economy. And how did they manage it all? This is where another world-changing invention comes in. Writing. The Sumerians developed cuneiform, one of the earliest writing systems, initially to keep track of goods. They used a reed stylus to press wedge-shaped marks onto wet clay tablets. What started as simple accounting soon evolved to record laws, history, and even literature, like the famous Epic of Gilgamesh. Life in a city like Uruk was a whirlwind of activity. The streets would have been narrow, dusty, and crowded. You'd hear the sounds of merchants haggling in the marketplace, the hammering of a blacksmith, and the chants from the temple. Houses were made of mud brick, clustered tightly together. While the elite lived in larger, more elaborate homes, the average person's dwelling was quite modest. But these cities weren't isolated. They were connected by a network of canals and rivers, creating a vibrant trading system. They traded their grain and textiles for resources they lacked, like timber from Lebanon, copper from Oman, and precious lapis lazuli from as far away as Afghanistan. This interconnectedness was a hallmark of early, urban civilization. However, city life wasn't without its problems. The concentration of people made sanitation a major issue and disease could spread quickly. And with wealth came conflict. Cities often fought each other for control of land, water, and trade routes. The walls surrounding these cities weren't just for show. They were a vital defense against rivals. The Sumerian model of city-states, independent cities with their own government and deity, dominated Mesopotamia for over 1,000 years. But their innovations didn't stay there. The concept of the city spread, traveled east to the Indus Valley, in modern-day Pakistan and India. Around 2500 BC, another great urban civilization emerged. Cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa were masterpieces of urban planning. They were laid out on a precise grid system, with advanced water management systems that included public baths in some of the world's first known toilets and sewage systems. Unlike Mesopotamia, we haven't deciphered their writing. So much of their culture remains a mystery. But the ruins speak for themselves, telling a story of a highly organized and sophisticated society. Meanwhile, along the Nile River in Egypt, a different kind of urbanism took shape. While cities like Memphis and Thebes were important administrative and religious centers, the Egyptian civilization was more centralized under a single ruler, the pharaoh. The focus was less on independent city-states and more on a unified kingdom. What do all these early cities have in common? They were all born in fertile river valleys, where agriculture could thrive and produce a surplus. This surplus allowed for social stratifications, a division of society into different classes, from kings and priests at the top, to scribes and artisans in the middle, and farmers and laborers at the bottom. They were hubs of innovation, giving us writing, the wheel, law, and monumental architecture. These first cities were humanity's great experiment. They were messy, noisy, and often dangerous. But they were also dynamic centers of creativity and progress. They were the places where art, science, and governance were born. By bringing people together, they created a critical mass for new ideas to spark and spread. The legacy of Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, and their contemporaries is all around us. The very idea of living together in a large, organized community, specializing in different jobs, and participating in a complex economy, all started here. They laid the foundations for every city that followed, from ancient Rome to modern-day New York. So the next time you walk down a busy city street, take a moment to think about the Sumerians. The urban world we inhabit is a direct descendant of the bold leap they took over 6,000 years ago, when they decided to build something entirely new on the plains of Mesopotamia, the city. It was one of the most transformative moments in human history, and we are all still living in its long, magnificent shadow. Thanks for joining me on this journey back in time. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the past. See you in the next one.